Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for more stories. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. I was at a downtown bar waiting to meet my girlfriend for dinner when I ran into an old acquaintance, Robert Barron. Years ago, I almost worked for him at Barron, Pratt and Partners, but back then I was young and easily swayed by appearances, so I joined another agency. Looking back, I like to think I would make a wiser choice now. We greeted each other, and he joined me at my tiny table. "Long time, Ethan," he said as we shook hands. I was genuinely happy to see him. Robert had always been a decent guy and would have been a great boss if I had worked for him. Maybe I would still be comfortably employed there without all the drama that came later. Instead, I had chosen a less than stellar firm, which eventually pushed me to start a small agency with my former best friend and business partner Tyler Hughes, a partnership that ended in betrayal and loss. By the way, I am Ethan Mitchell, former co-owner of that small ad agency. After a few minutes of catching up, Robert asked, "So Ethan, I haven't been following the industry lately. I had a heart issue a few years back, so I've stepped away. Martin Pratt runs the firm now, and I'm semi-retired." "Oh," I said. "So what brings you here, business or pleasure?" Robert chuckled, holding up his glass of orange juice. "Still the joker, Ethan. That's good. Humor helps in tough times." I raised my glass in agreement. "Semi-pure, I guess," he said. "I was visiting my grandkids. Now I'm killing time between flights. I've got a 10-hour layover before heading to my semi-retirement spot. Figured downtown was better than sitting in an airport bar. Plus, you don't run into old friends at the airport like you do here. Mind if I hang around for a while, Ethan?" "Not at all, Robert. It's a pleasure. I'm just waiting for my..." Before I could finish, my phone buzzed. "Ethan here. Hi, honey. You have to what?" "Damn. No. I just wish you'd tell that lousy boss of yours to get you more help," I said with a laugh. "So, dinner? How long will it take?" 3 hours max. "That's not too bad. Tell your slave driver boss I'll have words with him next time I see him." "You do that?" "Okay. Not sure how late Caruso's Grill stays open, but we'll figure something out. Call me when you're close to finishing up, or if you want to swing by. I'll be at the downtown tavern catching up with an old friend. You might have to pour me into a cab later, but I'll wait for dinner. Love you too. Looking forward to it. See you soon." I hung up and turned to Robert. "Looks like I've got time to catch up." "Great. Call me Rob now, Ethan." He sipped his drink and gave me a thoughtful look. "Last I heard, you and Tyler were tearing up the town. What happened?" "It's a long story, Rob. Kind of a heavy one. Like I said, I've got time. I love a good story. Mitchell and Hughes. We were equal partners. Tyler and I, our strengths complemented each other and diminished our weaknesses. I was the idea man and the writer. I was also the pitchman who sold the ad campaigns. I wrote the scenarios, scripts, and copy, but Tyler was the one who brought them to life. He wasn't much in the way of big-picture imagination, but he caught on to my ideas better than almost anyone I have ever worked with. Once we were on the same page, his eye for graphics and insistence on getting everything just right on the page or the screen meshed very well with my perfectionist cipher words. I might not know exactly what I wanted to see, but when Tyler put it together, I knew it was right. We worked together for 8 years, the first 4 in that crappy agency that will remain nameless, and then 4 years at Mitchell and Hughes Advertising. Mitchell and Hughes, that was us. It was our baby. We got to where we were doing all right and had a decent and growing reputation in the business. Sometimes we would even get discreetly called in by the big boys to critique their struggling projects, and they paid us well for our advice. We were doctors for sick campaigns. We met at that crappy agency, 2 junior staffers thrown together to try to rescue a very poorly conceived ad campaign. That place gave scant service to their smaller clients. Well, we salvaged something out of it and made a little money for our bosses. We also realized that we worked together really well. Tyler had gotten married to a very lovely lady named Claire just before he came aboard. I had married Rachel 2 years before that, back before I even knew Tyler. His wife Claire and my Rachel hit it off great when we first got together socially. They became about as close as Tyler and me, maybe closer. They were both great wives and sweethearts, and much too good-looking for 2 ordinary plugs like me and Tyler. On that, Tyler and I agreed. Rachel was a slender honey blonde. Claire had jet black hair, and they were both well put together, foxy ladies indeed. In heels, Rachel came up to my level with me. Petite little Claire might make it up to my chin in very high stilettos. Tyler is a great big beefy guy, 6'1" plus. He looks like a pro linebacker gone to seed, but he is much too gentle a man to do anything like play contact sports. Me? I'm about 5'10" and weigh about 160 pounds. I actually did play a little college football. I was the little guy they put out there to run fly patterns and return kicks. I got the snot kicked out of me week in and week out, but I gave as good as I got, and the half scholarship I got helped me get through school. I was on my own after high school. Rachel and I, and Tyler and Claire, were practically inseparable. The gang of four, we called ourselves. We liked each other's company in and out of work so much that we went in halves on a mountain lakefront property and built a nice cabin there. We co-owned a boat too, a real sweet cabin cruiser. I've never seen one as big as ours up on any of the lakes up there. But hey, it was for four people, right? Right on the fateful day when everything turned, the four of us were going to enjoy an end-of-summer weekend together at our lake hideaway. But I hit a snag. We were supposed to make a big presentation of an ad campaign to Whitaker and Sons next Friday, but this Thursday night, old Harold Whitaker called and said he had to go to Asia next week. If we wanted to try to get the Whitaker account, we'd have to make our pitch Friday, the next day. He is kind of a prickly old cuss, and we really did not have a high percentage shot at the account, but it was worth the risk. But the schedule crunch sucked. We had the package fairly well laid out, but there were some finishing touches that we thought we would take care of and polish up during the first part of next week. So we pulled an all-nighter, and Tyler came through as usual with all the graphics. Friday morning, his part was done, and we agreed that he and Claire would take Rachel up to the lake as planned. I would go to Whitaker and endure their glacial pace of meet and greet to give the pitch. If I were lucky, I would get done by 5 or 6 p.m. After a 3-hour drive up to the lake, I would be there in time for us to go out to the new buffet over at a nearby resort. Harold Whitaker, old Harold, liked to do things nice and slow. I would call it glacial. There would have to be a long morning tour of the plant to learn how we do things here at Whitaker, then a leisurely lunch to get to know the cut of each other's jib. Then finally, a lengthy afternoon presentation of the firm's goals followed by Harold's dissatisfaction with their current sales campaign. I knew pretty much what his gripes were. The campaign was from a big agency that would not put the time and effort into a small to middling account like Whitaker. Sounded familiar. After all that, I would be up front and center. It would probably be no sooner than 3 p.m. or so. I would make a detailed 90-minute pitch, slides by Tyler, to address their complaints as we envisioned them. Then there was sure to be a lengthy Q&A session to satisfy everyone that we knew what we were doing. That would be about 90 minutes or more. All this for a long shot at what would be our biggest billing client ever. But we thought it was worth trying. When I got there, it was Murphy's Law Day. The worst laid plans, etc., etc. The local area got hit with a substation power failure, and everything was down. No power, no work, no AC, no nothing inside. We could not tour a darkened plant with no functioning air conditioning. There would be no leisurely lunch except from a local pizza place that delivered. There could be no slide presentation in a powerless conference room. So Harold led us out to a little campus picnic area. There was no power for slides and nothing to project them on, which canceled out much of Tyler's great work. Still, I had hard color copies of the slides, enough for maybe half of the major attendees. I told them they would have to share. I had lemons thus far, so I decided to try for long shot lemonade. Instead of general conversation to kill time, I started grilling Harold and his people about what they wanted to project in their ads, which was a return to a more peaceful rural setting to show off the work they did and the very fine products they made. I think it was nostalgia. But hey, I thought that nostalgia would sell Whitaker products well. It was all of a piece with old Harold himself. He believed in what he did, and he could be more folksy eloquent than any copywriter could make up. Then I told them flat out what was wrong with their current failing campaign. And I told them why. I told them the ad agency simply did not buy their self-image idea. The ads they created were slick, edgy, and borderline mockeries of Harold and his old-time virtues. It was a smarmy, big city point of view with no sincerity in it. They took notice of that, I tell you. That's right. Harold jumped up and said, "That's exactly right. They're more interested in poking fun at us and our ways than in selling our doggone product for us. They think they're so doggone subtle. Mr. Mitchell, I think you nailed in 10 minutes what we've been trying to tell them for 4 whole doggone months." Harold eyed me for a moment. Then he went for it. "Ethan, how would you present Whitaker?" So I told them. It was not exactly what was written on our presentation, but it was not far off. I had been thinking all along about the virtues of an old-time company. What they had just been telling me informed what I told them now. I told them our Whitaker ads would promote the ideals of honest work, good native materials, and hometown values where a man's word was his bond, and you gave an honest day's work to the best of your ability. I was only telling them what they saw in themselves. Every ad would feature a different Whitaker employee going through a typical workday activity and would end with him or her looking the viewer in the eye and saying, "I go home every night knowing that I did my absolute best for the man or woman who buys what I make." There's not too many in this day and age can say that and mean it. I stand behind my work, and Mr. Whitaker stands behind me. I won't let you down, and he won't let me let you down. Then Harold would step in beside the employee, and he would say, "You have our word on it." Cornball? Sure. Sincere? Absolutely. Jesus, they loved it. They crowded around me, pounding me on the back and jumping around like little kids at a playground. Harold told me he was sold. He told me to FedEx the contract for the full deal, all options included, to where he'd be staying in Japan next week. Harold was direct when he knew what he wanted. "I want you back here 5 weeks from Monday when I'll be back. I want you raring to go by 8 a.m. We'll give you a real tour and introduce you to the kinds of people at Whitaker you'll want in our ads." It was just 12:30 when they saw me off. Mission accomplished. Mitchell and Hughes had our first big account. It might be SOSO for the agency that had bungled it, but it had enough revenues to keep us going and let us bring in some staff to take the burden off us. I was practically singing. I headed out on the long road up to the lake. I decided not to call ahead. I would just waltz in hours ahead of time with a huge success story for the four of us to celebrate. I hit a gas station for fuel and a pit stop and planned to be on the road again by 1 p.m. The restroom was so filthy that I did not try to change there. Instead, I pulled around back of the station by the dumpster and changed in the front seat of my Ford Focus. I wound up driving with my clothes strewn over the rear passenger seat and my swimsuit clad, but bouncing in anticipation of the celebration after I blew in. Damn, I thought, I even might get in some serious sunning and swimming. As I drove up the cabin driveway, I could see that foxy little Claire was asleep, swaying in the hammock down by the dock. She wore a skimpy bikini and was a real hottie. Just looking at her like that could give me a partial stiffy. There was nobody in the cabin. The cabin cruiser was out on the lake, 100 yards or so from the dock, gently rocking. I let Claire sleep on, although I did slow down to appreciate how little of her was covered by her string bikini. Now I had a full stiffy. I walked past her and dove into the chilly lake water. That soon took care of the stiffy. I reveled in the feel of the exercise as I swam out to the boat. I thought I'd surprise Tyler and Rachel, sunbathing or fishing. But as I neared the boat, I could not see either of them. They must be down below in the cabin, I thought. But that made no sense. It was too gorgeous a day to be inside. I came to the short transom ladder and put my weight on the lowest rung. As the boat heeled, I thought I heard Rachel's muffled voice. No words, just a sound. Then I was aboard and moving toward the hatch that led down into the cabin. I was tiptoeing. Why? Instinct. 2 steps down, and I saw Tyler lying on the starboard bunk. Rachel was with him, seated on his lap, moving gently and steadily. Their movements were slow and relaxed, as if they were completely at ease, with no rush or urgency. It was a calm and familiar moment between two people who had shared this connection many times before. As I stood there frozen, Rachel's eyes opened up, but she was unseeing, still oblivious to my presence. As she neared her climax, she tilted her head back in the way that I knew so well and let out that little squeal I also knew so well. She rolled her head from side to side, looking straight up in her ecstasy. After a few moments, she let her head come forward, and her body slumped, and then her eyes looked back up, and she saw me. She screamed, "Ethan!" I heard Tyler chuckle. "That hurts my feelings, babe. It's Tyler." I finally became capable of movement. It was a toss-up. Grab down the salvage axe and go in there swinging, or just back away and try to think. Make a plan. As I backed away, I heard Rachel's panicked voice. "No, Tyler, it's Ethan. He's standing there. He was standing right there. He saw us. Oh my God. Oh my God." I looked over at the dock, at the hammock with Claire's sleeping form, and further up, the 2 vehicles. His Chevrolet Tahoe and my Ford Focus. That gave me a hint of a plan, although admittedly short-term. But a half plan is better than chaos, someone once said. Just as I stood on the transom, ready to dive, I heard Tyler's agitated voice. Geez, Rachel, are you sure? You idiot. You think I don't know what Ethan looks like? Of course it was Ethan. As I dove, I heard, Ethan, buddy, wait. The water was cool and silent. I swam back, consciously going for long, smooth, strong strokes, my mind completely concentrating on the movement. It left no room for coherent thought for a few moments. But this brief respite of peace wasn't going to last long. I was the best swimmer by far of the gang of four. I'd be at the dock in no time. The gang of four. Rachel screwing Tyler was going to shake the gang up a little. There was no escaping having to think about that, and a million other bad things. I began to hear the boat's engines being cranked over and over. You always flood it when you're in a hurry, a-hole, I thought. I decided right then that a-hole was Tyler's new name. For Rachel, I was wavering between 304 and deceiving. I made it to shore and heaved myself out of the water and onto the dock. As I walked past the hammock, I heard Claire's cell phone start to do her goofy little ringtone from deep in her tote. As I neared the two vehicles, I heard her sleepy little girl's voice. What? I'm trying to sleep. Then what? No. God. Wait a minute. I don't. Then Ethan. Wait a minute. Wait up. Ethan. I have to talk to you. I looked back. Claire was scrambling around trying to find her sandals. She's not a barefoot kind of girl at all. The gravel hurts her delicate little toes. By then, I was leaning in my Ford Focus, rummaging in my pants pockets. I came up with my key ring and pulled open the small penknife blade. The Tahoe beckoned. I sunk the blade into one rear tire and then into the spare that hung on the back. They deflated with fierce, then fading, hisses. I heard the boat's engine getting louder as it neared the dock, but didn't bother looking back. I jumped in the Ford Focus, which always started like a champ, and I could see them now. They had 70 or 80 yards to cover, running up from the dock. I saw they had managed to get their swimsuits on en route. All nice and decent-like for the benefit of any passers-by. Wouldn't want to scare away the tourists. I threw the Ford Focus in reverse and floored the pedal. I whipped the wheel around just like I was taught back in defensive driving school and executed a pretty decent bootlegger's turn. Once the ends swapped and I was pointing away from the lake and the cabin, I slipped the transmission into drive 1 and raced away down the driveway, spewing gravel behind me in a miniature rooster tail. Damn, I had always wanted to do that turn in a real-world setting. It was sweet. So why did I feel so sick? I hit the paved road and drove too fast for several minutes, then cut back on the gas. It wasn't as if any of them back there would be chasing me for a while. Not with 2 out of 5 tires down. It took about 7 minutes before my cell phone went off. I have it set so that it will act like a home answering machine where you can hear the person leaving the message after the beep. Honey, Ethan, look. I know that was something that you didn't want to see, baby, but you just have to come back and let me explain. There is an explanation. Please, Ethan, please, baby, please call me back. I love you. She repeated that call and some variation of that message many, many times. I wondered if that I love you sounded as hollow to her as it sounded to me. Just before I did my jazzy bootlegger's turn, I'd noticed that the boat was drifting away. A-hole had been so excited, he'd forgotten to tie it up. I figured his cell phone was on board, so I called his number and left them a group message, one that they could not interrupt by picking up. A-hole, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that we won the account. They lost all power out there, so I couldn't do the presentation. We were just killing time, sitting out on some benches, so I decided to just wing it, and old Whitaker and his people just ate it up. He wants us to send him the full contract next week. Now, for the bad news, in several parts. The first piece of bad news is that I'm not going to do anything about Whitaker. You can do whatever you want, but I'm ending this partnership effective from the moment I saw what happened between you and my wife. I don't know you, and I don't want to see you again. You've been deceitful and manipulative. Want to know the lies? Anytime you called me your friend. The second piece of bad news is for Rachel. Are you listening, Rachel? I'm going to divorce you as soon as I can speak with a lawyer. I hope this doesn't come as a surprise, but I don't know you, and I don't want to see you again either. You've been deceitful, and the lies you told me were hurtful. Want to know the lies? Every time you said you loved me. The third piece of bad news is for Claire. Since you've clearly been part of all of this, you're now added to the list of people I don't want to know or see again. No offense, but I hate being lied to by people I trust. Okay, that's it. You can continue with whatever you were planning to do. Good luck getting emergency road service up here on a Friday night. After I sent off that little billet due, I disengaged my mind and just wallowed. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Rachel and Tyler. Rachel and a-hole. Rachel and a-hole. Screwing away like an old married couple. This must have been going on for years. How could I not have seen anything until now? I realized now that there had always been opportunity. The four of us went everywhere and did everything together in all kinds of combinations. I'd squired Claire to parties when both a-hole and Rachel were working on something or other, or maybe working on each other. That was the crux of it. I'd never dreamed of it. So they could have been doing it forever. I'd have never known. It might have started as soon as they met. My wife, screwing my partner. My supposed life partner. Riding my supposed best friend. And Claire just snoozing away, but apparently not surprised. No, definitely not surprised. All she could say was that she had to talk to me. How the hell would that conversation have gone, I wondered. Oh, by the way, Ethan, in case you missed the memo, my Tyler and your Rachel screw each other every chance they get. Are you tired from your drive up? Let me get you a drink. I wondered what was in it for Claire. The repetitive ding of calls into my cell phone was getting on my nerves. I wanted to turn it off, but I briefly wondered how many calls per mile I was averaging. It might be a record. I might get something positive out of this mess after all, I thought. Then I had another thought. I'd have to share the record with whoever was calling me. Screw it. I'm not sharing anything with those people. I flipped the phone open and pushed the red button to turn it off. Okay, now what? My wife was screwing my best friend, who was also my business partner. Oh, this could get awkward at the office Christmas parties. No, I was making jokes out of this. I always joked at bad times. It was that or start crying. Right now I knew that if I wasn't laughing, I'd be driving off a cliff or straight into a stone wall somewhere on the way home. Home. There's another laugh. To paraphrase Robert Frost, home is the place that when you go there, when it isn't a-hole's turn to screw Rachel. Rachel and I had a pretty active sex life, I thought. Or we had up until about a year and a half ago. But even turned down a notch, it had been pretty good. Geez, if she's also been doing him along with me all along, she must need a pocket planner to keep her assignation straight. Or maybe Claire kept the calendar for her. Claire always was the organized one, keeping the sex schedule for the gang of 4. Check that, now the gang of 3. Home. No, I'm not going home. Not right now anyway. That'll be where they'll head when they get on the road. They're probably synchronizing their lives right now. I figure if the 3 of them work in 10-hour shifts around the clock, in a couple of weeks they might be able to convince me that I didn't see Rachel act the way she did while with Tyler. It's all about persuasion, you know. No, I wasn't going home. I'm not ready to listen to their lies right now. Instead, I headed for the office. Soon we will be at the offices of the soon-to-be URWile Mitchell and Hughes. A-hole Hughes will have it all to himself now. Maybe he'll leave the Mitchell on the door like Scrooge left Marley's name. Boo. You see these chains? A new link was forged whenever you screwed Rachel. Rattle, rattle. Even I didn't think I was funny anymore. I cried. Really cried. Real salty tears. I think the word was sobbed. I had to pull over for a few minutes. I couldn't see to drive for the tears. I wiped my eyes and started up and eventually pulled into my parking space. I decided to be practical. I started with the nitty-gritty details, save the big picture stuff for later, I thought. I made a checklist. I went online with my bank and set up new accounts for myself. I took half of everything in my joint accounts with Rachel and moved it to my new savings account. I liquidated all our joint CDs and split the money 50-50. It cost us some money in early termination penalties, but I really didn't give a damn. And Rachel wasn't there to protest. Screw her. Check. Our investment brokerage had 24/7 online customer service. The computer took my orders to sell our joint portfolio, but balked at my request for expedited service. The weekend guy emailed me to call him to verify. So I called the number he gave me and told him the basics of what I was doing. I also told him why. He invoked the 72-hour cooling-off clause and said he wanted to talk to Mrs. Mitchell about it. I told him to knock himself out. But by the contract, whether he talked to her or not, I had the right to do this without her permission. He said it would be done by close of business Wednesday. I said fine. I thanked him. Check. I called Lawrence Porter, our family lawyer. He was at home on a Friday night. Get a life, Lawrence. I said I wanted him, or a referral from him, to file for divorce, and to do whatever was necessary to dissolve our business partnership. He sounded startled and asked what had brought all this on. I told him. After I was finished, he said he was very sorry to hear of it. He cautioned me about moving too fast on these things. He asked whether I would consider some marriage counseling. I said no, that the time for words ended around 3 this past afternoon. He told me to call him back Monday morning for an appointment and referrals. I thanked him. Check. I pulled up the real estate classifieds and found an apartment in the closer-in suburbs. I wasn't sure where I'd be working after this weekend, but this was accessible to the major arteries. I called the number and talked to a nice lady. I was surprised they were open this late. She said they had a unit that I could rent for 6 months with option for renewal. The nice lady said that if I would promise to come in early the next morning, she would put a temporary hold on the apartment until noon. If I liked it, she said I could come over and sign the lease Monday evening after they ran a credit check. I thanked her. Check. Damn, I thought I was making progress. My life was falling down around my ears, but I was getting a lot of check marks made. It was a poor substitute for losing the love of my life and my quantum best friend. But it was something, I guess. I was at the end of my checklist, so I added another item. I hunted through my Rolodex and found a card for Gregory Hanley, the head of one of the good ad agencies in town. I had remembered right. He had scribbled his personal cell phone number on the back when we had chatted some months ago. He was a former shark, total shark, but now was reportedly mellowing into a pretty nice guy. He had people to be ruthless for him now, I suppose. I called him up. He sounded surprised that I was calling, but not displeased. We chit-chat for a few minutes. Then he said, Ethan, I have no problem just shooting the breeze on a Friday evening with a friend, but why do I have the feeling this isn't a purely social call? That's because your instincts are still first-rate, Gregory. Okay, in a nutshell, I caught my wife Rachel screwing my partner Tyler this afternoon. For some reason, that displeased me. I'm going to get as far away as I can from both of them. I'm going to divorce her and bail out on the partnership with him. The time frame is ASAP. I can't ask you for a new wife, Gregory, but I do need a job. Wow, he said. You've had a huge Friday, Ethan. Let me think. I have a good organization. A little thin in the graphics area, but no holes that you'd be an obvious fit. Mostly junior stuff. I have good people in any of the slots that you'd be a natural for. But I'll never turn away real talent, nor a man who needs a little help. I could hear him whistle softly as he thought. I thought maybe he really has mellowed. Ethan, my head is spinning. I need to talk to some people. Tell you what, give me a few days. Say until Wednesday or Thursday at the latest. I will without fail get back to you with something. And it will be concrete. To tell the truth, when I used to bug you about coming in with me, I never dreamed you might actually agree. I thought you and Tyler were going places. Yeah, well, not going to happen now, I said. Gregory was thinking out loud. Damn, this could be really interesting. Any leads I can pick your brain for? No. Well, we won an account with old Harold Whitaker. Or did win it. I don't know whether Tyler can handle it on his own. Gregory said, Whitaker, that rings a bell. Gregory, it was your account. You gave it to someone who's managed to piss Harold Whitaker off. He's going to dump your campaign. But I can't snipe that one back for you. First, because Harold's pretty pissed at you and your minions right now. Second, because, well, much as it pains me to say it, Tyler did a lot of the detail work. By rights it belongs to the firm. And since I'm walking away from the firm, I've decided to leave it for him to try to make it work. I'd say there's a 50-50 chance he won't be able to do it with me gone. So you may get another shot at it. Gregory laughed at me over the phone. I can't believe you, Ethan. Here the guy has been brewing you over, and with your wife no less, and you're still trying to be honorable and do the right thing. Didn't anybody ever teach you that there's no room for principles in advertising? Just because he's an a-hole doesn't mean I have to be one, I said. I still got to look myself in the mirror every day. Anyway, like I said, you may get that do-over shot, but only if we can work something out by Wednesday. And by the way, how could you get so careless about a good solid account, Gregory? That's not like you. Maybe if I poke around, I could find other accounts that are being neglected. Point well taken, Ethan. Point well taken. Geez, it sounds like you're almost making money for me already. For a principled fool, you do nice work. Without fail, I will get back to you Wednesday. Ethan, trust me, I'm not letting you get away. Damn, I gotta have Sophie look into losing that Whitaker account. I can't believe we got so sloppy. Who's Sophie? I asked. Sophie's my daughter, Ethan. You met her a couple of years ago at the big New Year's bash we threw. Very petite. Very pretty. Very sharp. You hiring relatives now, Gregory? Nepotism doesn't replace talent. Screw you, Ethan, he laughed. Nepotism has nothing to do with it. Sophie's a lot like me. She has good instincts. Unlike me, she's got an MBA. Besides, she's my daughter. Not my nepot. God help her if she looks like you. Gregory. Nope. She's got her mother's genes to work with there, and she did a nice job, although in a very small package. Anyway, you'll be meeting her after Wednesday. But let me warn you, Ethan, she's very sensitive about the nepotism thing. She hates to be patronized. Okay, forewarned is forearmed. Or has forearms. Or something. Anyway, thanks, Gregory. Forget it. I'll work you so hard you'll be begging for help. I laughed and hung up. Check. Damn. If you didn't know how screwed up my life was, you'd think I was really cooking. Oh well. Time to go home and listen to lies while I pack, I thought. I told them on the voicemail that I didn't want to see them, but I had to go back to the house and pack, and I knew they'd come there trying to explain, so I'd have to endure them one more time at least. I added another item to the checklist. I'll have to find a hotel for a couple of days. I called around and found one off the interstate near the address of that new apartment and reserved a room for 2 days and nights. Check. The next to last thing I did was dig up a mini recorder from my desk, load it with fresh batteries and a new cassette, and slip it in my jacket pocket. I might need a recording of the next few hours' worth of conversation with the gang of 3. The last thing I did was empty most of the junk in my desk into the trash and put the remainder in a Xerox paper box to carry out with me. Check and check. It was dark out when I got home, and my house was dark and deserted. They weren't there yet. Man, I thought, that emergency roadside service really blows. I had just gotten my suitcases down from the attic when I heard the door open. Perfect, I thought. The gang of 3 arrived. I figured they'd find me eventually. I turned the recorder to record and set the jacket down at the end of the bed with the gain set at max volume. They came up, Claire in the lead. I guess the adulterous 2 weren't eager to face me. They stood there watching me as I opened up the suitcases and tossed out whatever was inside onto the floor. Anything that was mine and hadn't been used for over a year was superfluous. Anything that was hers, who cares? Rachel spoke first. Ethan, first of all, we're all very sorry that you got hit with that today. Now, will you please listen and not go crazy on us? Oh sure, I said. I can listen as I pack. But here are the ground rules. First, nobody touches me. No hugging. Nothing like that. No one in this room has close-up rights to me. Not ever again. Understand? Second, if Tyler gets within swinging range, I'm going to knock him on his butt. No warnings. Got that? Okay. Third, I won't listen to lies. If you feel you have to tell me something, give me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I don't know how long this screwing around and cheating and adultery has been going on, but you have all been lying by omission for a damned long, long time. No more of that. Tell me all of it, first time out of the box. Okay, you have the floor. Claire, would you mind not sitting in the middle of the bed? I need that space for my suitcases. She jumped up and sat over on the arm of the chair where A-hole was sitting. I got busy emptying out my dresser drawers while they just looked at each other. Geez, I thought. They've had 6 or 7 hours to get their lies straight. Tyler kicked it off. Ethan, I know that you're pissed off at me. I'm sorry about today. I mean, Rachel and Claire are going to tell you about that. But about the contract, our business, you can't be serious about walking away from the partnership. The contract you won puts us way up there. We're a team. We can be rich. I stopped stuffing underwear in the case and stared at him. Tyler, a-hole, there is no we. There is no us. We're no longer a team. I can't be on a team with a man I thought was my friend, my best friend, after I found him screwing my wife. If you can't understand that, then you're too dumb to be able to dress yourself each day. But the contract, he said. The money, so you hate me. Right now, I hate myself. A lot of this is my fault. But people who hate each other work together every day. Hell, they even stay married sometimes. Not me, I said flatly. We are done. Mitchell and Hughes is dead. Also Mitchell and Mitchell. Baffled, Tyler sat down, muttering. Then it was Rachel's turn. Honey, you said you wanted a divorce. I know how mad you are, but you can't mean that, Ethan. You just can't throw away 10 years of a great marriage over one mistake. I slammed the case lid down. Okay, let's get something straight. Not a one of you can understand how I feel or how mad I am or anything about me right now. You're all just upset because I turned over a rock and exposed this little arrangement, affair, mess, whatever. You are way behind the curve on the feelings thing. So let's skip past all this petty talk about our great business and the 9 years we spent together and get straight to the point. I'm ending everything because I can't stand to look at the two of you. One mistake? I could accept one mistake. But I saw more than just that. When I look at him, I remember what happened. And it hurts to think about how you betrayed me. That's my permanent picture, my screensaver. Do you think I could accept seeing that every day while we work together? I can barely stand to be in this room with him this second. But I got to pack. And I know we got to get all the rest of the story all talked out, one time, so I never have to be in a room with any of you again. Rachel, all I can see is you giving BJs. That's my picture of you. All I can hear is you getting off with that little cry of yours. That's my soundbite right now. No more business. No more marriage. I'll spend the rest of my goddamn life trying to forget those pictures and that sound. Claire, you've been very quiet. Explain to me how it was okay with you that Tyler and Rachel were screwing each other today. How is that okay? Let's get the whole story out. Maybe someone can go back to the beginning and tell me how this all got started. I'm feeling kind of masochistic, so I'd like to know. Bring me up to speed while I pack. Rachel sighed. Ethan, sometime after we first got together with Claire and Tyler, do you remember how I asked you if you thought she was hot? You thought it was one of those trick Cosmo questions. But I was serious. I wanted to know if she attracted you. I asked you if you ever fantasized about, doing her. You admitted that you did. Well, after I got to know Tyler, I began to have thoughts about him. Just like I knew that you wondered what it would be like being with Claire. I wondered what it would be like being with him. He's so very different from you. He's so big and all. Claire told me he was really big everywhere. I knew what she meant. Well, I was thinking about that a lot. And no, not just about the size thing either. Really, Ethan, I have no complaints about you like that. Ever. It's just that he's such a sweet, gentle giant kind of man. Claire and I started having an honest conversation about our feelings. She told me directly that she admired you and had a strong attraction to you. I mentioned that you were exceptional in many ways, Ethan, and that caught her attention. Tyler isn't comfortable with some things, so as you can see, we were both curious about getting to know each other's husbands better. I interrupted. How long ago did you get serious about this? It was always sort of there. After we first got to know each other as couples, Rachel said. It was just a little fantasy thing we talked about once in a while. But then after you guys went in business together, we were spending more and more time together, and it got to be more upfront. And we both decided to start sounding you guys out about the idea. That's when I asked you about how you felt about Claire. I thought it was good that you'd admit to having the hots for her. A lot of men would just lie and say no way. Claire worked around to it with Tyler. And, well, he was interested. He was cautious because he didn't want to do anything to screw up his marriage, or our friendships, or the business. But he was interested. But you weren't. Claire and I talked about you a lot. What would it take to get you over the hump? We knew you wanted her, and you knew that I wasn't upset about that. So we figured time would bring you around. Tyler was getting into the idea more and more, and he wanted to get going with me, Rachel said. But she said no, not until Ethan is good with it. We all agreed that it had to be all or none. Otherwise, it would be cheating. And I tried to work on you, to bring you around, Rachel continued. But you kept rebuffing me, blowing me off. You just wouldn't take it seriously. I just couldn't believe all this. They had been serious. Yes, I said. Now I can look back and see your little campaign. You kept saying you knew I wanted Claire. And I kept saying, sure, but it's a fantasy. A harmless fantasy. And I told you I don't act out on my fantasies. And I told you why. Because we made vows. To be exclusive. Rachel, our wedding vows. Forsaking all others was the phrase. And you were trying to tell me you felt that it would be all right if we both agreed to allow it with our best friends. And I was telling you it would not. That was sophistry. The vows are what they are. We don't get to renegotiate them whenever we please. And I remember that I clearly told you I was getting sick of hearing all this stuff. I told you I was an old-fashioned man, and that I'd never agree to fooling around outside our marriage, whether you said it was okay or not. And in case you forgot, I also said that I'd never stand for you fooling around either. Yes, you did, Rachel said. And I told Claire that it wasn't going to happen, as long as you felt that way. And I meant it. I closed up my big 3-suiter and set it down, and then opened the 2-suiter. Okay, I said. So you're saying that it was all settled? You knew I wasn't going to screw Claire. No offense, Claire. And you say that you all accepted that Tyler wasn't going to screw you unless I was good with it, unquote. So what happened? Neither Tyler nor Rachel seemed to know what to say. So Claire stepped up. The miscarriage set it off, Ethan. The miscarriage. I couldn't figure how that was involved in this. But evidently it was. It was one of the first real trials of our marriage. Nothing like this, but big enough at the time. It was the last week of September, and we were out doing some yard work together, taking advantage of some nice Indian summer weather. Rachel said she began getting some cramping in her abdomen, but shook it off. Then it came back stronger. She called out to me, and I got her into the house. I called the doctor and described the feelings, and Dr. Anderson asked if Rachel had taken a pregnancy test. I asked her. No, of course not, she said. I'm on the pill. I can't get pregnant. Dr. Anderson said. Nothing is 100%, Ethan. Take Rachel to the hospital emergency entrance. I don't like the sound of this. She asked if there had been any bleeding. I started to say no, but Rachel yelped, and I saw she was bleeding a little bit. I bundled her up and drove her over. The bleeding was stronger when we got there, and the cramping was bad. They did some tests and gave Rachel something to make the cramps less painful. But it took a few hours before she was beginning to feel like she was getting back to normal. The cramps ended, and so did the bleeding, but Rachel felt all washed out and weak. They cleaned her up, and Dr. Anderson gave her some meds. Then she sat down with us and said that she had had a chemical pregnancy, which is what they call a very early pregnancy miscarriage. The fetus was too early to even have a heartbeat that anyone could detect. She said Rachel told me that she hadn't had any idea she might be pregnant. But she had, and that poor little life had just floated out of her with the blood. They let me take her home that night. I was scared for her and tried to be supportive. Rachel said she felt numb. After a while she told me that she was all consumed with the idea that we'd made love and almost made a life together, and now it was dead. I saw that she didn't find comfort in my arms anymore. In fact, she shrank from me at night. It was as if she didn't have any desire for me anymore. Rachel didn't want to go anywhere or do anything for weeks. Claire and Tyler came over a lot, and they seemed to be able to rouse her spirits a little bit. What I didn't know was that they had that secret little seduction flirtation thing going whenever I wasn't around. That was what was perking her up. Then they'd leave, and she'd go right back into her funk. Dr. Anderson told me that Rachel was in a post-traumatic shock syndrome of depression. She said I had to be patient with her, and I shouldn't press her for sex until she said she was ready. So I held back. When we got to Halloween, it was the first time that you seemed to be yourself. You got all caught up with decorating the front door, and then had me take pictures of all the little trick-or-treaters who came by. We laughed and applauded their costumes, and then closed the house up when it got too late for the little ones to come. We went upstairs, both feeling pretty good. It was all very nice, until I hinted to you that I was in the mood for some romance. All the giddy went out of you, and you huddled away from me. You told me that it was too soon. So I backed away. And a week later, it was election day. Yes, it was election day, Claire said. Almost 2 years ago. We all went to vote, and then we went out to dinner and went to our house to watch the returns. It was the first time that Rachel had been out after her miscarriage. Remember that night, Ethan? You were my gallant hero when I got so sick from the seafood. I was just heaving and heaving. We had all been drinking pretty much, except for you, our old reliable designated driver. It was raining and Tyler was pretty wasted, and so you volunteered to drive me to the hospital. As sick as I was, I still wondered about leaving the others alone together, but we had all agreed that nothing would happen until Ethan was on board. So I figured it was okay. I even managed to remind Tyler to be good, and he said, "Oh sure, babe." When I got back the next day, Tyler got me alone and told me that they'd done the deed. It was not what we'd agreed. We'd agreed to just cool it until we could find some way to bring you around, but I guess Tyler and Rachel were getting pretty antsy, and now it had gone past the point of no return. It was inevitable, I suppose. I kept staring at a-hole. Finally, Tyler sighed. Okay, it was my bad. We were drinking and cuddling, and I just got so aroused that I started touching Rachel, and she responded. We'd both been fantasizing about it for so long. We'd even talked about how it would go, envisioning the whole sequence. Well, it went just like we talked about, and then we had wild sex. We broke our agreement. I was just too weak. I can't make any excuses either, Rachel said. I was weak too. I wanted it so bad. We felt awful about it once we'd done it. We cheated on both you and Claire. But I accepted it as a done deal, Claire said. So we remade the agreement, Rachel said. We accepted that it would go on, with Tyler and I, but I would keep working on you. We still had hopes that you'd come around eventually. We even thought about getting you drunk and putting Claire in your bed, but she thought that was too unfair. Until then, we would be very careful and make sure that you would never find out. We felt guilty about it, but that didn't stop us. It was just too pleasurable. We would keep it secret, Rachel said, and I would make sure that you would never suffer from it. Claire said, we all agreed that under the new arrangement, Rachel would never deny you sex, or stint on your relations, or do anything to hold herself back from you. That way, we really weren't hurting you or your marriage. I slammed that suitcase lid down. Stop it. Right now. When we began this little talk, remember my ground rules. Number 3 was that I wouldn't listen to any lies. What you just said was a lie. Claire and Rachel looked at each other, stunned, not comprehending. A-hole, after you got together with Rachel for the first time, did you keep on with it? Tyler nodded. How often? 2 or 3 times a week from election night on, A-hole said. At least. Okay, I said. Now you listen to me, Rachel. We had sex the night before you had the miscarriage, right? Well, yes, I guess so. Then you miscarried. And a month later, after the miscarriage, on Thanksgiving, you were still turning me away, right? Yes, but it was too soon after. I know. You said that. You were still depressed. That it was too soon. Right. Okay. Then came election night. And you screwed A-hole. That was 7 days later. You were depressed and not in the mood one day for old Ethan. But 7 days later, you were so undepressed that you couldn't wait to spread them and get it on with A-hole. They were looking at me, wondering what I was getting at. Now, Rachel, when did we first make love after that? Well, I can't remember. I can. It was December 24th, Christmas Eve. You finally began warming up to me as you got all caught up in the Christmas spirit. But long before that, starting the 7th day after you denied me, you and Tyler began screwing and were doing it 3 or 4 times a week. That was over 7 weeks before Christmas Eve. You never denied me? That's a despicable lie. I picked up my suitcases and tried to add on my duffel and dop kit, but it was too much for me to take in one trip. They were looking at each other, trying to make sense of what I just said. Claire said, Rachel, I specifically asked you if things were good with you and Ethan. You said sure. You never said anything about cutting him off all that time. But we had agreed that he wasn't supposed to miss out. Rachel, why didn't you make love with Ethan after election night? I thought you were. You kind of said that you were. Jesus, Rachel, you were over your depression. You were screwing Tyler like crazy. Rachel looked wildly about. I don't know, she said. I don't know what to say. I really was not aware that it was like that. When I was with Tyler, I was all over the depressed feelings. He was such a gentle big old teddy bear, and I felt so open and happy and safe with him. But when I was with Ethan, he was my husband, and we had made a baby together. And the baby had died, and the depression would come back and take hold of me. All those feelings came back. It was like there were 2 lives going on. In the one with you guys, everything was fine. But when I was with Ethan, it was not. I cannot explain it. She finally looked at me. Oh God, I did not realize. Lies. I am so sorry. But Ethan, I swear, I did not mean it. It was not on purpose. It just happened that way. I just looked at her. Rachel, even when we got back together at Christmas, and ever since, our sex life has never been the same. You were just not as engaged with me as you had been. Now I know why. Gotta save up the real loving for old a-hole bear. There were more lies. I started out of the bedroom, carrying the 2 cases. I realized that Claire was coming behind me, carrying my duffel and my dop kit. We walked out to the garage in silence. Ethan, I do not know what to say to you, she said at last. I had no idea that it was not supposed to be like this. We made these agreements. Then Tyler and Rachel broke the one, and Rachel was breaking the other all along. We never ever wanted you to have any reason to feel you were left out. We had all agreed. I opened the back hatch and humped in the 2 cases. Ethan, why aren't you as mad at me as you were at Tyler and Rachel? Other than going along with it, you have never, well, as far as I know, you have never betrayed me with my wife, I said. Not like a-hole did, or betrayed me intimately like Rachel did, by screwing a-hole. I do not know, Ethan, she said. Going along was a betrayal too. Drifting from one broken agreement to another was too. I am the one who was crazy to want to have you. For that alone, you deserved better from me. So I guess I should be just as guilty in your eyes. Yeah, I said. I guess. But I need a little help carrying the stuff, and you volunteered. I cannot deal with more than one betrayal in a 24-hour period. I'll hate you tomorrow. I am sorry, Ethan. We are all sorry. It was not supposed to be like this. We messed up. But look, I'll get Tyler and Rachel to stop. I snorted at that. No, seriously. All the way down here, they are both pretty shaken up about all this. The way it has all blown up, especially Rachel. Ethan, she really did not realize she was cutting you off. She knows I am furious at her for that. Maybe we can all take some time to cool down. Maybe we can all talk through all this. Maybe see a count. No way, Claire. What difference can it make if they cross their legs now? The pictures in my head will not ever go away. I could never trust them again. I could never trust you again. You would do or say or lie about anything to try to undo this mess. None of it would be worth a damn to me. Hell, you people could not be trusted to keep your own agreements. Rachel and a-hole made them and broke them whenever they were inconvenient or got in the way of a good screwing. It was like they did not exist. No, this is goodbye, Claire. I will not return your call. From any of you. I'll communicate with Rachel through my attorney. This marriage, the agency, are dead. For a second I thought Claire was going to hug me, and I stiffened and leaned away. The first rule. She turned and went back into the house. She still had that fine, foxy body, but I could not appreciate it anymore. I went to a hotel. The next day, Saturday, I went over and claimed the apartment the nice lady was holding for me. Monday, I signed a 6-month lease on my new apartment. I also called Lawrence's office and got the number of a divorce lawyer that he recommended. I called and got lucky. They were booking almost a month in advance, but as I was on one line, someone else was on another line calling to cancel. He was in an auto accident. I got his appointment for the next day. I bought some cheap furniture and kitchen stuff from a Salvation Army store. There were 2 guys looking around in the store. We were the only men there, so we started to talk. They were just browsing, they said. Did not have much cash to buy anything. They had a pickup, so I hired them on the spot to move my stuff over and carry it in. 2 trips, and I was settled in. And they were $100 richer apiece. The place had a phone line and was pre-wired for cable, so I'd have internet access by Wednesday. I ignored all voicemails from the gang of 3. I got the faint notion that they were all very, 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 very sorry. Blah, blah, blah. I wondered why they were wasting their time on the phone when they could be screwing 24/7. Tuesday, I met with the divorce lawyer. She said that there were some mutual grounds for what could be an expedited divorce, but the other party had to agree. Just for grins, I picked up my cell phone and called Rachel. Before she could recover, I asked if she'd go along with an expedited divorce on those mutual grounds. She sputtered and cried and vowed that she loved me and would do an X. I cut her off. No, I said. I do not think that Rachel likes that idea. Miss Harrington eyed me. Nasty, nasty, Mr. Mitchell, she said. Not a constructive attitude. Now tell me the circumstances. So I did. When I was finished, she said, I take back my last remark, Mr. Mitchell. You would think after 18 years in this business, I would learn to wait before making snap judgments. That tops any story I have heard so far. The best grounds for you would be adultery, but you would have to go to some expense to gather evidence. Now that Mrs. Mitchell knows that you are serious, I would presume that she and Mr. Hughes will stop their adulterous activity, or at least try to hide it. Maybe, I said. But how would you evaluate this as evidence? I brought out the mini recorder. It had the recording of everything said in my master bedroom Friday night. I was amazed how clear the voices were. After listening, Miss Harrington questioned me about the circumstances. I do not know, she said. You did not tell the others that you were taping, but on the other hand, it was in your house and your bedroom, so the court might consider that you had the right to monitor anything you wanted. We can give it a try, but it might be iffy. I am just trying to warn you that there could be objections. We cannot compel them to testify. This is not a criminal proceeding. The rules are different from what you see on TV. What does Mrs. Hughes do for a living? She is a publications manager for a government contractor. Does the job require a security clearance? I think so. I see her badge when she comes over straight from work. Well, we can threaten to slap her and her husband with an alienation of affection suit. That could jeopardize her clearance. It is dirty pool, but all you want is to persuade Rachel to go along with less damaging grounds and give her consent. At some point, she will have to accept that divorce is inevitable. I'd consider the alienation of affection suit anyway. It all depends on how much you want to punish Mr. and Mrs. Hughes. I said, I just want to be free of her. And of them. She said she would get things going. Thus in death, the gang of four. Gregory called me Tuesday night and told me to come and loaded for bear on Wednesday at 9. I should have taken him at his word and brought a whip and a gun. He introduced me to his senior staff, the managers and directors, and the senior account execs, and to Sophie, who was a senior account exec. They were all chilly toward me, especially Sophie, who thankfully did get her looks from Mrs. Hanley. I did vaguely recall seeing her at the party, but as a married man, I had made it a point to never check out the females too openly. Pretty ironic, huh? There was no question that they all saw me as a threat, but they were not exactly sure how. Gregory did not give me any specific authority over them, but he gave me carte blanche to sit in on meetings and development sessions. Gregory gave me a quick overview of everything that was going on in-house, but I could go pound sand if I expected the principals to fall all over themselves briefing me. So I sat in. Since I was coming in cold, some of my questions were dumb. When someone made a sarcastic remark about that, I reminded them that it was their option to bring me up to speed. The more I knew, the less of their valuable time I would be wasting with dumb questions. I can ask really dumb questions, the kind that take a lot of time to unravel and answer. That got me some grudging cooperation. So I listened. I made notes. I sent the notes to the principals as advisory memos. I always ended by saying that I would be happy to meet with them to discuss my points, but it was their option. I settled in. As time passed, I noticed that my notes were not automatically rejected. I did sometimes get invited to explain my views. Once they knew I was honestly trying to be helpful, a few of them began asking me to sit in on the real working sessions where the hard work gets done and some crisis ad hoc meetings and asking for my input. That gave me a better knowledge of the details of some of the campaigns. The word got around that I was not Satan incarnate and that I was sometimes helpful. That brought invitations from more of the managers. Sophie was one exception. She did unbend and did discuss my notes and did open up to serious dialogue on her projects, but just with her, never with any of her team. All of this was progress, but slow. I still felt very much like an outsider. After 6 months, I walked in on Gregory one morning and said I was not getting as far as I wanted as fast as I wanted. He said I was attempting a culture change, and culture changes are notoriously slow. He got up and closed the door. Then he said he had a plan to make me his deputy, with authority over the whole agency. His ultimate goal was that I would take over for him when he decided to retire, but it would take time to set that up. If he did it abruptly, he would lose too many good creative people who would resent me being jumped up over them. I asked him if that was fair to Sophie. She was the obvious successor. Gregory said that it was his agency and he would do what he thought was the best in the long run. Sophie is not ready for that this soon, was his last word. The way it looked, I was going to have to win everyone over as being the biggest, baddest, bestest ad man in the world. Now I have a lot of self-confidence, but that sounded like a damned big hill to climb. And I told him so. He laughed and said he told me that he would work my butt off. I said that critiquing other people's work was fine, but I needed to do something more concrete. So Gregory memoed each of his 5 senior account execs and asked each to give me a project that they were not active on, meaning their absolutely most hopeless dog. So I had 5 dead doornails. Sophie's was the most moribund, so I started out with that. Time went by. I got 3 of the near-terminal accounts to sit up and start taking nourishment, including the dog from Sophie. After I brought back the signed renewal contract for that baby, Sophie came to my office and offered her handshake. I never thought anyone could do anything with that dog after we screwed it up, she said. I may have been wrong about you. You mean I am not as big an a-hole as you first thought? I said, no. Well, maybe not quite, she said, with the faintest hint of a smile. I invited her to sit down and got us a couple of coffees. She eyed me, and I sat silently. This was her overture, and I was not going to interrupt. She began by asking point-blank what my ultimate goal was there at Hanley. Why do you not ask your dad? I said, I serve at his pleasure, Sophie. It does not matter what my goals are. Gregory makes the rules and does the deciding. I called him up and asked him for a job. So far, he seems to want me as a general factotum and bottle washer. What happened to Mitchell and Hughes? She said. I had heard it was a rising star. Why leave and have to beg Gregory for a job? I am sure that you have heard. I countered. There are no secrets in this business. Okay, sure, I have heard some things. I have heard that you have a great reputation as an idea man and a writer and pitchman, which seems to be true, I have to admit. Gregory tells me Tyler was a very good detail man and graphics guy. That sounds like you could have done well. What happened? Just assume that I have not heard the juicy rumors. In this case, the juiciest rumors are probably true, I said. I had long since resigned myself that I would never be able to go very long without having to tell the story. Short version. I caught a-hole, Tyler Hughes, screwing my wife. It had been going on for almost 2 years. At my home, in my bed, sometimes, etc. A-hole's wife was in on it because she thought I was going to wind up screwing her. No accounting for taste, I guess. They wanted a 4-way swapping deal, and I was quaint enough to believe in monogamy. I am working on a divorce and dissolving the partnership of Mitchell and Hughes. So, I did not have a functioning marriage or a functioning job. And I asked Gregory if I could work out something here. He did not have a spare wife available, but said he would find some little scraps of work for me to let me earn my keep. Voila. Sorry to hear that about the cheating, Sophie offered. I heard some rumors about all that, but the reality sounds even worse. That must be hard to take, on the business side. I appreciate you coming here to talk to me. Sophie, was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Yes, as a matter of fact, there is. Despite all our initial skepticism, my team and I think that your critiques are very good, and very professional. You do not attack matters of taste unless you can show that they are misguided. No one on my team, myself included, has the range of insights that you throw out as if they were commonplace. I would like to invite you to come and talk to us. Maybe work with us. I think it will help us grow and improve ourselves if we can understand some of the reasoning behind your comments. That is, we think that we can learn a lot from you. That is, if you can stand to be in the same room with 5 women. Why would I care about that? Well, you have reason enough to make you something of a woman hater after hearing that story from you. I wonder that myself. Certainly, you would have good reason. I laughed. Roll. Oh, I cannot say that I am not kind of cynical, but I cannot condemn a whole sex because a couple of them were deceitful liars. Let me be honest, if I ever want to get laid again, I am going to have to deal with some woman with a tad of faith and trust. I am trying to be fair and take people at face value until they up and screw with me. So sure, I would like to meet your girls. Or is it your women? I do not want to step on any toes. Girls, women, call them anything you like. Except maybe not deceitful liars. I will try to restrain myself, I said. So I got to meet with Sophie's team, she and her 4 women. Again, it was like going into a cage of big cats without a whip and a chair. I figured they expected me to go in and talk at them. Instead, I just sat down and told them to say whatever they wanted, any topic they wanted. Free shots, with no hard feelings about my past comments or anything else they had against me. They smirked, and one tall, athletic-looking redhead said, "Oh sure, Ethan. You want to hear what we really think? Then you will go running to your buddy Gregory and have us canned for being candid." I pointed out that A, I was not going to do that, and B, that even if I did, Sophie would just go running to her daddy Gregory and prevent that. You girls are Sophie's handpicked team. Gregory would not interfere with that. And I certainly would not. What good does it do me if I cannot get your honest opinions? They let me have it. Compared to their attitudes, Sophie was my buddy. I think even Sophie was surprised. I think that she had fed them such an original negative impression of me that she had convinced them I was Satan personified. Tough room. The most hostile was Victoria Novak, the tall redhead. She was not conventionally beautiful, but she had a certain attractiveness once you got past the stern expression and intense demeanor. Her name suggested German roots, but there were features in her face that hinted at Slavic ancestry. It all came together in a way that felt quite exotic. If she were not so focused on making her disapproval clear, I would say she was intriguing. At least I hoped it was figurative. She was tall enough and muscular enough to remind me of Xena. At least, I think most of those curves were muscle. God help me if they were all woman. Either way, she was formidable. I took all of their attacks, defended myself where I could, cited my gut instincts in some things, and readily conceded where I now knew I was wrong. I told them I made mistakes like anyone else. They were not won over exactly, but became less determined to rip my heart out. Their biggest beef was that I was too harsh on Sophie in meetings and critiques. That's horseshit, I said in my most suave, diplomatic manner. Sophie is going to be a great success in this business, but not right away. She has the smarts and the instincts, but she gets coddled here. Being Gregory daughter and all, people mute their criticism around her. She has to endure real-world criticism, with the bark off. Otherwise, how can she learn and grow? I tell her my honest opinions. They did not like hearing that. Vicki challenged me, said I was patronizing Sophie. Sophie sat thinking for a few minutes. Ethan may be right, she finally said. After I got used to vetting things with him, I find myself thinking through new things more, trying to anticipate where Ethan would be poking holes in it. I was so accustomed to my gut feeling producing what I thought was brilliant stuff that I got too defensive in meetings. Fact was, I always got my way in the end, and not for the right reasons. That's how we had that fiasco with the booksellers. I thought I'd screwed that one for good. Then Ethan picked it up and turned it around. Girls, from now on, I want Ethan to hit me with his best shot every time. You too. When I come out of here, I want to be ready to take on anybody's criticism. That lightened things up, and we had a much better meeting after that. Life went on. Rachel went along with the divorce, and it went final after 6 months. I developed a better and better working relationship with Sophie and company. It began to dawn on me that there was talent in that team, as good as the best anywhere in Hanley. I told Gregory that, and he nodded, but still left them isolated along with Sophie. I thought it was a waste of talent and told him so. He said his business, his decision. It seemed as if he was getting a bit cool, as if I was questioning his authority or decision-making too much or too often. Well, hell, of course I was. That was what he hired me to do. Take a hard look at everything and tell him what I thought, without fear or favor, as the phrase goes. Wasn't I supposed to be his presumptive heir apparent? Or apparent heir presumptive? Or something? I was still struggling with the process of dissolving my share of the old business by remote control. There are ways to set up a business with explicit escape mechanisms for both sides, but we did not set up Mitchell and Hughes that way, and I did not want any contact with a-hole. That made the process drag out. I would not sit in the same room with the scumsucker. But it became moot. Right around the time of the divorce, it was just a coincidence of timing, but that was when a-hole made the last of his mistakes on the Whitaker campaign, and Harold fired him. That was the only significant client the old firm had. A-hole had to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which effectively dissolved the business anyway. I had to pay half of some business taxes, but it was worth it. I was free of Mitchell and Hughes. I heard that a-hole was floating his resume. One day I was in Sophie's conference room arguing with Vicki over some point. Unfortunately for my side, it hinged on a matter of visual art, my weakness, and the feisty redhead was putting away all my art arguments. The other women were taking no sides, but I got the feeling they were enjoying me getting my clock cleaned. They liked to watch us fight. When I was reduced to feebly muttering, "Well, I concede everything that you say, but I still say that it just does not look right," Vicki claimed victory. It came down to a matter of taste, and mine was off as usual. Game, set, and match, Miss Novak, I grumbled. Nobody likes a smart, with a grin. I never set out to claim to be infallible. Just about then, Gregory stuck his head in the door and asked me if I had a moment. I excused myself and went out to the corridor. He came straight out with it. He said he had Tyler Hughes's resume in hand and was considering bringing him on board. I stiffened. He was watching me very closely. Despite any personal issues, he said, Tyler has a great reputation. His eye for graphics and insistence on getting everything right, on the page or the screen, is undeniable. I think it is something that we lack here. How would you feel about that, Ethan? Like you were trying to kick me in the balls, Gregory. My voice had some volume to it. A few heads popped up in the vicinity. Ethan, you have to grow up and get realistic on something like this. You have to learn to divorce your personal life from what's best for all of us professionally, he said. His manner was patronizing. What the hell? I cast about wondering why he would think of doing such a thing, and in such an imperious manner. It suddenly came to me that Gregory might have slowly been becoming disenchanted with me. When I had first come aboard, he had loved my take-charge attitude. I was his leader in the culture change. I had nominally no authority, but I was forcing people to scrutinize old stale patterns. But inevitably, as I thought about it, that had begun to erode his authority. It was one thing to want me to be the go-to guy. It was another for him to see people turning to see my reaction to presentations before his. He may have been having second thoughts. He had begun to reassert himself in certain things. Jesus, I thought. Is Gregory growing jealous? Am I starting to look like a threat? Hell, he could kin me in a second, but then that might look as if he'd made a mistake in hiring me. Bringing in Tyler would get me out the door on my own volition. Well, so be it. Fine, Gregory. It's your firm, I said. By now people were looking at us. I saw Sophie and her girls standing in the conference room doorway. That's right, Ethan, it is my firm. Perhaps you've been forgetting that lately. So you're bringing Tyler in. Gregory showed a brief flash of his old shark's teeth. Yes, I've made that decision. Ever since Thierry went out on his own, we've lacked a heavy hitter in the graphic sense. Tyler brings that in. Gregory, all personal stuff aside, I won't argue with you about Tyler's abilities. But I've been trying to tell you for some time that you have budding talent already here. Vicki Novak has as good a graphic sense as Tyler. Her taste is better than his in some ways. Tyler gets lazy and retreats back to a set of visual cliches when he can't come up with something novel. I've yet to see Vicki do that. All she lacks is experience. You and I can mentor her through that. And she's not the only one. Pete Kinter on Chad's team has potential. Gregory, we'd be better off grooming our own young people. Screw potential, Ethan. I want proven. Look, Ethan, he said. I can set it up so that you and Tyler will not work together. I'll locate him someplace where you won't be running into each other. Gregory, if I'm your quote deputy unquote, and I sit in on all the meetings, how can I not run into him 20 times a day? That makes no sense. I knew it was pointless. For whatever reason, Gregory was turning his back on me, and his implicit promises to me about our mutual future. He was taking my future with Hanley away from me. The shark was back. Okay, Gregory, I said. I get it. I have a suggestion. Put a hold on my office. Right next to you. I'll be out by the end of the day. Ethan, be careful. I don't like threats and ultimatums. This isn't an ultimatum, Gregory. It's a resignation. I turned and walked away from him, heading back toward A-hole's future office. I heard Ethan from several people, one of them Gregory, but I kept going. No matter what Gregory might say right now, my time here was done. Even if he reversed himself on hiring A-hole, I would never be comfortable working for him again. I thought, lucky for me I saved that Xerox paper box. I was doing the old desk dump out when there was a knock on the door. I called out, too soon, A-hole. Not vacant yet. Go away and screw somebody's wife for a couple of hours. No, it's me, Sophie said. She came in, followed by the girls. Ethan, what in the hell was all that about? Gregory doesn't tell me everything that goes on, but I could swear you were his fair-haired boy. You said something about being his deputy. Sophie, I think Gregory has been trying to work too many angles at once. He told me to keep silent on this, but screw that now. He wanted me to act as sort of de facto his deputy, as he called it. It was supposed to be between the two of us, but there was an implicit promise that I would succeed him. But to do that openly would be a slap at you, and that's why he wanted to keep it under wraps. I assume he wanted to find some way to sugarcoat it for you. But the more I worked myself into that role, and I'm sure you saw it happening, the more Gregory seemed to get uncool about it. I'm no psych major, but he seemed to want it and yet not want it too. He liked the idea of phasing himself out, but when it began to happen, I think he felt I was moving too fast, taking away some of his authority. Bringing A-hole in was a way to make me fire myself. Well, good luck to him. And to you? He's right. A-hole, Tyler brings in something Hanley needs. But I'm right, that it will stunt people like Vicki and Pete Kinter, who could wind up better than Tyler anyway. It's all moot now. I'll be out of here in no time. Sophie looked around at her team. There was a lot of nonverbal communication going on. Then she said, Ethan, where will you be around 7 tonight? Home. Eating Chinese. Making plans. Maybe doing laundry. What? Are you going to look for another job? No. Ever since I've started feeling the vibes here, I've been planning to start up another place of my own. I'm not going to get caught napping twice. I have some money put away, and I have a workable line of credit. My production shop may be the nearby FedEx Kinko's, but that can work for a start. I'm going to go downstate and win that contract back from Harold Whitaker. 2 things, Ethan. 1, don't be surprised if you get some visitors. We'll bring our own Chinese. 2, make sure you build some flexibility in your staffing plan. We had been sitting in the pub for nearly 3 hours, with Rob quietly listening. I was just about talked out by now. So I assume you did start up another shop, he asked. Yep. Merritt and Associates. Let me guess. Sophie brought her whole team out, and they hooked up with you. And you married Sophie, and she's the other Merritt. No, not exactly. Well, I don't know exactly what her plan was, but Gregory hijacked her. He knew something like a defection was possible, so he got her in his office an hour after I left and offered her my job, only with immediate authority and a guarantee that she would take over in 2 years. Now Sophie liked me, and she liked the idea of going out as a small shop, but she couldn't pass up a golden opportunity like that. Blood thicker than water and all that. And there never was anything romantic between us. She had a fiancé. She called me around 6:30 and told me not to expect her and her girls. She laid it out for me, and I told her she would be a fool to pass it up. I wished her well, and I was sincere. And she has done well. She learned a lot, very fast. Hanley is still a top agency, remember. I wasn't so full of myself that I ever expected anyone to follow me out of the place to begin with. That had been Sophie's initiative. Okay, but who's the other Merritt? Rob asked. All in good time, old friend. So Sophie never came over, but 3 of her girls did. The only member of her all-girl team to hang with her was Ivy. So I did have a knock on my door, and they did bring their own Chinese. I wound up with Sherry and Andrea, 2 good all-around people, and Vicki, who told me she would seriously hurt me if I messed things up for her and the others. I had a lot of respect for those ladies, passing up a chance to move up with their main girl. I've done my damnedest to make sure they've never regretted it. So who's the other Merritt? Rob asked again. Geez, Rob, are you in a hurry or something? A plane to catch. I teased. You sadistic scum-sucker, he laughed. Going to milk this a while yet, huh? Come on, Rob. There are lots of loose ends to wrap up to complete the story. Okay, I'll play along. You know, Ethan, dragging out the message is what set a lot of your work apart from the others. He looked up at the clock. I absolutely have to hail a cab no later than 30 minutes from now. So I'll give you 25 minutes, tops. Let's see, loose ends. Got it. The rest of the gang of 4. What about them? Tyler went to Hanley. But what about the personal side? Well, Tyler is pivotal, but it was all about the ladies. Under the original setup, with me still around, fat, dumb, and happy, Veronica was married to Tyler, but she and Rachel shared him. The 2 adulterers had to be discreet, so Veronica got plenty of loving in between assignations. But once that blew up and I was gone, Veronica didn't like how things were working out. Tyler seemed to be more interested in screwing his mistress of 2 years than his wife of 6. Veronica was pretty pissed at them to begin with. They had ruined the grand plan by making agreements and then breaking them. Tyler was just thinking with his small head, like most of us men, but Rachel had been cutting me off while screwing up a storm with Tyler and then saying she didn't realize it. So sorry, boo-hoo. Veronica was particularly sore about that. Remember, Veronica always supposedly had a thing for me. After I was gone, she didn't like the schedule and called them both on it. Tyler said he didn't realize. It sounds familiar, right? And promised to be even-handed. But then he and Rachel started sneaking around on Veronica, cheating on her. Who would have thought it? When Veronica caught them, she divorced his butt and never looked back. She told me that Tyler had morphed into a sexual opportunist who didn't give a damn for anybody else. So that left Rachel and Tyler together. They were both single, or at least Tyler was on the way. Ethan, don't tell me you married Veronica. You said you always had a yen for her. No. She did call me up. Maybe she was checking on her chances. I don't know. We got together and talked like old friends. She said several times how much she regretted the whole stupid scheme. But in the end, she had been a conspirator, remember. I may have still had the hots for her, but I would never have been able to trust her, even if I was in love with her, which I wasn't. Maybe the one was related to the other. We had a goodbye hug and went our separate ways. After a time, Veronica got a transfer out of the area. I got an invitation to a wedding not too long ago. I hope she winds up okay. Meanwhile, back to Rachel and Tyler. So now they're free to have sex 24/7, with no annoying spouses to deal with, or have to sneak around on. That lasted 2 months. And then Rachel called Veronica up, furious. Seems that Tyler was starting to talk up swinging. Rachel got the message and pulled out of that relationship by the next morning. So did you see her? Oh sure. It was all past me by then, or at least a work in progress. I had had time to cool down and get over some of it. I figured that I blamed all of them, but Veronica, Rachel, and Tyler, in ascending order. I talked to Veronica, so I would talk to Rachel. She was smart enough to know there would never be anything between us. Like Veronica, she said she was sorry for the scheme and all the deception. She went out of her way to apologize for the dry spell while she was doing Tyler. Said she didn't realize it until I called her on it when I was packing that night. She said she certainly never intended it. What could I say? Water under the dam. Water over the bridge. Anything else stupid. I wished her well, but I wasn't up for a hug. Okay, Ethan, now Tyler. What about a-hole? Is the book closed on him? Rob pushed. Well, let's see. When we left our hero, I was gone by a day and Gregory was welcoming him as the new fair-haired boy. On the surface, anyway. My girls were still friendly with Ivy, and to a lesser extent Sophie, so I had an ear inside. Remember how Gregory seemed to be ambivalent about me, wanted me, but then wanted to get me the hell out, and all that? With Tyler, Gregory was having buyer's remorse, on top of some sneaky feelings that he didn't do the best for Hanley by getting me to leave to make room for Tyler. Oh, don't get me wrong. Tyler walked in and began injecting his visions and view of graphic rightness into everything they had on the table. But he couldn't market worth a damn. Unlike me, he was limited to the one area. Unlike me. And at bottom, well, Sophie pushed Gregory to admit that he eventually wished he had kept me. Crazy, right? I never did ever figure what was messing Gregory up in that way, but at least he kept his commitments to Sophie. And about 6 months into his stay in the increasingly Sophie-dominated shop, Tyler came on to Ivy, Sophie's protege, got her to come to his apartment to do some work, and then tried to get physical. I guess by that time Tyler was thinking he was irresistible. He's a big guy, and although he really isn't physical, he sometimes projects it. Ivy got the message that he was going to get rough with her, so she went passive and stopped fighting him, and he basically assaulted her. He hurt her. She was a small woman. She went running to Sophie, and Tyler was behind bars the next day. He had a clean record and pleaded that he was drunk and just misjudged her reactions. He was convicted, but most of it was suspended. He was fired, of course, and Sophie backed Ivy in a civil suit that wiped him out financially. And he is now a nationally registered sex offender. The ad business was closed to him. My God, Rob, you know how it is. Every agency has dozens of sexy young things walking around as associates, receptionists, and just plain eye candy. Bring a known sex offender into that environment? Not likely. He pulled out and went west. Someone told me he works as a freelance illustrator for a hunting gear company. I think he does their catalogs. Why do you think he got like that? Rob asked. I never heard he was trouble like that. He wasn't. Not for all the time we knew each other up to. Well, not at first. My theory, once he found he could get Rachel, and he already had Veronica, I think he got delusions of being irresistible. He had his own little harem going. My best guess. So tell me, Ethan, did you ever get to deck him? Yes, I did. And thank you for asking. For months after I left Gregory, there was one of those local media awards dinners. I was there with my girls. I got to the organizing committee and had us placed far away from the Hanley table, trying to keep the peace. I saw them come in, and he looked around and spotted me. He got up and I looked straight at him and shook my head. No, don't come over. But he did anyway. The scum sucker had his hand out to shake mine as he came up to me. I shook my head again, but he ignored it. So I slapped his hand away and gave him a 1-2 combination. One fist to his gut, the other to his jaw. He went down like the big ox he is. I just left. The girls collected my comeback award. Rob suddenly checked the time and was pointedly looking at his watch when I was saved by the entrance of a near-Amazonian red-headed goddess. She was the focus of everyone's attention as she made her way to me and pulled me up for a knee-knocking kiss. I tendered the introductions. Dear, this is an old friend of mine from the past, Rob Worrell. The Amazon gripped his hand and said how pleased she was to meet my old friend. I said, Rob, this is my business partner, sparring partner, and wife, Vicki Merritt, née Novak. Delighted to meet you, Vicki. I can't tell you how much I like happy endings. She smiled at him and then glared at me. Ethan, have you been boring Rob with that old story? You have to excuse him, Rob. I so rarely let him off the leash that when he slips free, he does like to run free and tell wild tales. Don't tell me you actually believe all of that story. Now, has he gotten to the part where he put Tyler in the hospital? What a liar. It was only the emergency room, and he was discharged just a few hours later. I laughed at Rob's reaction to all this. No, dear. I only told him the short version, wherein you come off all prim and proper and yet fiercely independent. You'd better, she sniffed. I left out the part where you forcibly seduced me on your drafting table when I was weak from lack of good Chinese food. Vicki rolled her eyes. Rob, what was a girl to do? The combination of soy sauce and MSG was making him invulnerable to my ample charms. I had to do something to get my name on the door, and it would never make it as Novak. Then she looked archly at him and winked. Have I scandalized you sufficiently, Rob? I like to make a good first impression on Ethan's friends. Rob laughed at our play acting. Oh, you have done your job, Vicki. Congratulations on getting Rob back from the ranks of the cynical and disillusioned. Tell me, how did you overcome his defenses? From all that happened to him, I gathered he was sour on romantic attachments. Vicki smiled at me, then said, No problem, Rob. Ethan is mine and mine alone, and he knows it. I also showed him what I would do to any man who tried to come between us. I have martial arts training, and I know when and how to use it. I mock winced and said, Yeah, and she practices on me every day. And every night, Vicki added. My old friend got up, shaking his head. You too. Look, Ethan, it was great running into you. You have my card. Give me a call if you ever get out west. Vicki, you are a delight and a good match for Big Shot here. I'm so happy to have seen you both. Now I have to catch that cab. As he put on his coat, he listened to the Merritt's banter. The kitchen is definitely closed by now, Vicki. What took so long? I give you one little detail to wrap up, and you take all night? Well, screw you, Mr. Ethan Lurie. I had to triple-check everything you wrote. Even spell check throws up its hands over some of your wild copy. Seriously, is there any place open around here? Well, there's always the In Chong. Nope, no Chinese. Ixie boy, I intend to have my wicked way with you. No phony MSG headaches are going to put me off. Rob Worrell took one fond last look and walked out smiling. He had rarely ever seen two happier people. What about Italian? There's Mari's, all night, just up the street. Something all garlicky and yuck, as if I'm going to smooch Mr. Garlic Mouth. That's the end of the story. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching.